Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and in today's vlog, we're exploring my taste in fantasy romance. Now, I have historically not had fantastic luck with contemporary romance, and I've historically not had great luck with some fantasy romance, but fantasy is probably my favorite genre, and I love the idea of romance. So combining those together should work. I just feel like I need to figure out what works and what doesn't work for me. So I'm gonna read 3 different fantasy romance books with different spice levels, tropes, vibes, in different levels of fantasy and different levels of romance on my mission to find the ones that speak to my soul. Oh, hello. Your brother is jealous. The first book I'm going to read for today's vlog is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. Now, I will be honest with you, I'm filming this in the future, thus I have already read this. But I apparently just jumped right into telling you about the book and didn't make any sort of introduction. Also, I'm so sorry if you hear the people working. I'm trying to talk in between the construction, but it's never ending. I'm starting off with this one because I feel like there's a lot of this that can work for me. It's a Hades and Persephone retelling, which my favorite fantasy, fantasy is a light use of the word, fantasy romance that I've read thus far is Neon Gods by Katie Robert, which is also a Hades and Persephone retelling. This appears like it's gonna be smutty and spicy, which is my thing. And I've heard tons of amazing things about this on BookTok and BookTube, so I'm feeling good going into it. I'm so excited about this journey, so let's go ahead and get into it. Oh my god, I have never, ever read a book or consumed a piece of media, or even, I think I've met one person in person who had the same name as me, Lexa, not Alexa or Alexis or Lexi, but Lexa. And this main character, her best friend's name is Lexa. I'm so excited, but it's so weird because I've never gotten to read about a character who has the same name as me. They call her Lex, which is my nickname. And not only do I have a character who shares my name, it's in a book that has my favorite, it's not trope, retelling. It's a fantasy romance based off of Hades and Persephone, which has been my favorite ever since I read Neon Gods, which was the first book that I read back in, when was it? 2021? I think I read 3 or 4 books in 2021, but that was a book that I had seen recommended on BookTok. I don't know why out of all of them I decided to pick that one up, but it was a Hades and Persephone retelling. Absolutely loved it. So ever since then, I've been looking for a really good Hades and Persephone retelling, and this one specifically is supposed to be more fantasy. Also, obviously, if we couldn't tell from the cover, smutty, which is my preferred type of romance. In the first chapter, we have Persephone sitting at a coffee shop. It sounds like in this world there is the mortal realm and then there is the god realm. But the gods don't know that Persephone exists and that she's a goddess. So she has been disguising herself in the mortal realm. She's in college, she's talking with her best friend Lexa. Lexa wants to go out and celebrate Persephone for doing something, but Persephone just wants to sit in the coffee shop and daydream about Hades. But Alexa's like, hey, I got us tickets to the exclusive club thing that Hades owns, which apparently has a 2-year wait list, but one of her friends can't go, so he gave her the tickets. And she's like, we're going tonight to celebrate. And Persephone's like, oh, I shouldn't because I shouldn't be around the gods because mother wouldn't like it, but okay. And I am determined to find my type of romance that works for me. I'm starting to think regular romance just doesn't. So hopefully we can find some fantasy romance that is. Good morning. I have, let's see if you can see, Dory with me. Oh, okay. You're gonna be right here. Just don't tear up my sweater, okay? You have lipstick on your nose now. So I'm about halfway through, and I would say I'm vibing with it. It is giving me Neon Gods vibes, but that might just be the nature of Hades and Persephone retellings. If you're sticking to kind of the same premise, it's gonna sound similar. However, this definitely does have more fantasy elements to it. But I would say if you're a fan of hard magic systems where you want to know the rules and you want it to make a lot of sense and you want to be explained what the rules and the limitations of the magic system are, which I think we all knew, right, going in. But just in case you're fantasy romance and you think high fantasy, little bit of romance, that's not what we're here for, okay? We are not here for the plot either because there is none. The plot that you read on the back of the cover in the first 3 sentences about Persephone being the goddess of spring, but everything that she touches dies, every plant that she touches, not people. Hades ends up gambling her and challenging her to breathe life into the underworld. That was an interesting use of that word. Within 6 months, and then if she can't make life happen in the underworld, then she has to stay with him in the underworld forever, which is a little bit tricky because she is also a college student. I don't know if they're technically two separate like worlds. It's all in our world and then there's the underworld. I haven't seen like a world of the gods yet. They kind of just chill out with us and like own clubs and bestow favors upon mortals. There have been no steamy scenes yet. I'm hopeful. Okay, so this isn't like super, well, okay, here's the thing. Is everyone I feel like has a different definition of what super steamy is. I feel like if I'm already halfway through the book and there's not been a steamy scene yet, even if the scenes are really spicy, I wouldn't call it super steamy. But there is a lot of like tension and angst and longing and like, vibes. Those scenes you can see here marked by yellow. I'm vibing with it. I did just find out, I thought that this was kind of like Neon Gods. I'm comparing it to this because it's the only other Hades and Persephone retelling that I have ever read. But Katie Roberts did like Neon Gods follows Hades and Persephone. The next one follows like a different god and goddess. And they're kind of like companion novels where the characters show up again, but it's not a series that's following the same people. I think this is a series following Hades and Persephone. So the fact that we haven't had a ton of like moments, I guess makes sense in the sense that like this is a series following them. I really like the like vibe that they have and the, what is like, not the connection, but the connection, charisma, vibe. People say like, oh, these actors, they have really good blank. That's gonna really bug me that I don't remember what that word is. Whatever, my brain will keep firing it off until I figure out what it is. I don't know if I love this version of Hades as much. Like Persephone, I get it, you're a college student, but like you're also a goddess, and some of the decisions she makes, I'm like, girl, what are you doing? It doesn't even make sense for her character. Like she's incredibly intelligent. She got an internship at like one of the top news articles in this world. So then when she goes and makes a decision that like a character in a horror film would make when they need to make bad decisions to get themselves killed, I'm like, what are we doing? Girl, stop. And I won't say whether I'm right or wrong about it, that way you're not spoiled for it, but I feel like the author is trying to set up, from the beginning has been trying to set up plot twists, but the hints that she gives you for those plot twists are like so obvious. Like this happens early on, and I won't say whether I'm right or not, but I think that I am right. She is working for this new news article, and she's talking about this, I think it's called like New Athens News, that's what we'll call it, I don't remember. And she's describing New Athens News to us, even though she already knows all about it because she's a journalism major, about how it's the biggest journal and news article in the realm, how they all are about exposing the truth and exposing the gods and goddesses for who they really are, and how there was this big scandal, and how we know because they're always honest about it, and that's what happened. They said so themselves. Like that was her exact word. She was like, yeah, this big thing happened. I mean, news article, News Athens News said it themselves. The most obvious misdirect ever. Like I'm supposed to be like, oh yeah, if they said it, then I believe it. I don't know who these people are, and they kind of sound sketch. And I don't know if you're really here for the plot. I do think that you could be here for the characters. Not a lot has happened, but I do think a lot has happened in terms of their relationship building and her learning more about him and her learning that maybe he isn't this like big bad evil god that she thought he was, and exploring the underworld, and that the underworld was nothing like she thought it was, and maybe he's like a really good guy that actually cares a lot about people, but I just wish he was like a little bit more evil. I just need a little bit of dab of some actions that show that like darkness behind him, or I need us to start revealing his backstory of like where he developed this deep evil dark side and this like broody, oh, I'm gonna be alone forever, everyone hates me and I'm fine with it being that way vibe, you know? This ending was absolutely feral. What? I am usually in for an out-of-the-box, completely tone shift, weird ending. It's hard to talk about because I don't want to spoil anything, but that ending did not work for me. The whole last half of the book didn't really work for me. I think she was trying to cram all of the plot and conflict and smut and relationship building into these last 100 pages, and you just can't do that. There wasn't enough room. We spent this long this long here on nothing, really. And I was kind of vibing with it. I was sitting at like a 4-star. I was like, this is good. 90% of the plot and 100% of the smut all happened in these pages. And I will say it definitely got spicier, but not in the way that I like. I would rather have longer smut scenes that feel more realistic and feel well fleshed out. All of these reds are smut scenes that lasted like less than a page, maybe a page and a half. So it was like back to back to back to back to back to back to back. If we're gonna spend 100 pages on it, just go. I would rather have 3 that like feels satisfying, feel like make me feel something. I can totally see why people like this. I liked the first 3/4 of it, but man, that last part, I don't know if you'll see in my reactions, but I was just like, what? One of the like main conflicts, it didn't even make any sense because the resolution was like so simple. But then the resolution that they came up with was like, I think that the author just wanted to like throw out any plot twist ending she's ever thought of and just see what sticks. That's what she did, but she just decided to put all of them in there. I would have been on board with that vibe if the rest of the book like matched that. Yeah, let me see, what are people saying on the Goodreads? Erin gave it 4 stars, Rumi's Digest gave it 3, 3, 4, 3.5. Ashley DNF'd it, fair enough. Thank you. Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction said, DNF 100 pages in, I've never known a character make so many stupid decisions so quickly. Thank you. Okay, that's how I was feeling toward the beginning. That was like my main gripe about our main girl at the beginning of it. Okay, so we've got feelings all over the place. I think the next thing I'm going to read is Burn for Me, so moving on to the next one. No one wants to see your butt in the camera. No, 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 no. What we are here for is to talk about the fantasy book that I'm reading, Burn for Me. Now listen, obviously, we have to address the cover. Would I have picked this up based on this cover in a million years? Absolutely not. However, I saw multiple people recommending this author and this series on BookTube and on BookTok. In a way, I was like, this kind of makes me trust your recommendation even more, right? Because you didn't get fooled by some beautiful book into thinking that you loved it, but maybe it wasn't as good as you actually wanted it to be, but it's so cute that like it pulls at your heartstrings. You didn't get fooled by that. You know that you have to hold up this book and recommend it with this cover, and you still recommended it with your whole heart. Makes me feel like the content inside is worthy of a reprint of the cover. And then I went on Goodreads and I saw that this has like a 4.32 average rating and has like 50,000 ratings, I think, or something like that. So a lot of people really, really love this fantasy romance series. You know what? Sometimes I like the feel of like a nice mass market paperback in your hands. So we'll see. I do know that it's actually a husband and wife duo who write these books. All I know so far is that we've got our main girl, Nevada, here, who, how she is described in the book, they do describe her as blonde, but they describe her as a person of color. Moving on. Our girl Nevada, who I will be picturing in my mind very differently than, I will be picturing all of the characters very differently than they are presented on this cover. She and her family own this business where they go and like do private investigating like insurance fraud and small kind of claims like that. And that's how they've been making their living. It's so cool. They all live together in a warehouse. It's her grandma, her mom, her 2 sisters, and I think her 2 cousins. And I love that feeling of like having a collective family, like unit, all living together. And they all own this business, but they had to go into a lot of debt to this like company, this huge company that they work for. Because of that, they kind of just have to go along with like whatever this company says. I will say, I didn't read the synopsis before I jumped into this because I normally don't. But then as I've been reading this, I am on page like 100. There are things that have yet to happen that are mentioned in the synopsis. So maybe if like you're wondering if this is gonna be for you, just read the like first little paragraph, because I feel like this synopsis spoils, like, I would assume is gonna end up being like half the book. It is classified as fantasy romance. It's very like urban fantasy. They're in our world. Where are they at? I'm like 99% sure that they're in Texas. So it's very urban fantasy vibes, but I believe what happened is that there was some sort of biochemical warfare vaccine kind of shot thing that was developed that people could take that gave certain people powers. And there's different types of magic that people have. Like some people are telekinetic. There's different words that it uses to describe them, but I don't remember all of them. Like some people can harness the power of fire. Some can move objects. Our main girl, Nevada, she can tell if people are lying or not. And then there's different levels to like how powerful you are with your magic. And primes are like the toppity top, very powerful people that usually are utilized by the government. So Nevada's been keeping her magic kind of on the down low because usually in this world, if you are considered to, like, if your magic ability is considered to be useful to the government or to big corporations, you're pretty much kind of forced into that sector. But at the beginning of the book, Nevada is called in by the big boss CEO of M2, which is that company that kind of pretty much owns her family's company, that she's being forced on assignment to go hunt down this like mass murderer, super scary guy. I'm so bad with names. I should write this down. Adam Pierce. And he is like prime, known to be like one of the most powerful dudes out there. And the police can't get him. She has no idea how she's gonna capture him. So she's like, I am like a small little family business and half of my employees are literally minors. What do you mean you're sending me out on this mission? And he's like, well, unless you want to lose everything, go ahead. But you have to bring him back alive, so good luck. Feels kind of like maybe there's a love triangle developing, which I'm a little bit nervous about because generally love triangles aren't my thing. But we've got tension, banter. Her grandma is fucking hysterical. Her, like, the primes in this world are basically like the celebrities. They have Instagram accounts, people follow them, they write fanfic about them, which is like very meta for this, since this is like a smut book about the primes. But in this world, people write fanfic about them. And her grandma is like obsessed with these hot younger men. I just love good family dynamics. So far, there are definitely things about it that kind of take me out of the story that aren't like, you have to suspend disbelief, right? Like, this is an over-the-top fantasy romance. No one is probably going to talk to each other or act like that in real life, but like, that's what makes it fun. So I am going into this knowing that like, I'm not supposed to take it too seriously, right? I'm supposed to just like go along for the angsty, smutty, tensiony kind of vibes. We're on chapter 11, and let me tell you, I think my favorite part of this still is her interactions with her family. Like, that's what I started tabbing the most of. I lost my bookmark, so I'm just keeping my finger in there for now. Have you seen those memes where it's like people using different things as like a bookmark? That's me right now. But with myself, I am the bookmark. This is definitely trying to have more world building and fantasy elements and plot than a lot of steamy fantasy romance books that I've read in the past. I wouldn't call this steamy. Nothing has happened. She's like kissed someone on the cheek, but there is a lot of pining and banter, which I really like. I'm a sucker for banter. It's very interesting because I am such a sucker for enemies to lovers in a fantasy setting where it's like so over the top, where their fights are the fact that they're like on opposite sides of a huge war, or like on opposite sides of in two different kingdoms, or in this case like they're both hunting down the same guy but their tactics are very different and he's like known for being a ruthless killer. For some reason that enemies to lovers type trope works a lot better for me than it does in real life situations, because I think that's something I'm figuring out about my taste in romance. Fantasy romance versus regular everyday life romance. Usually the enemies to lovers type plot in regular life romance just makes me hate the love interest, or hate both of them, where I'm like, neither one of you are good for each other. I don't like it because it feels so realistic and therefore feels so toxic and manipulative and like not okay. Whereas something like this, you've already suspended disbelief, you know it's over the top, so therefore the angsty enemies to lovers vibe really works for me. So I'm excited that I'm doing this vlog because I feel like that's a really good piece of information I've learned about my personal taste in reading, in books, and in different sub-genres around romance. I will say, because I did not read the back of the synopsis, and therefore was not spoiled for half of the book, I was surprised because I actually thought the other guy was going to be our main love interest, but it's looking like it's not Alex Pierce, I think that's his name, it's Mad Rogan. And I did not like him at first at all, which was why I didn't think that he was going to be the love interest. But he's growing on me, and we're learning more about his backstory and why he is the way that he is. You know, I love that. If you're going to give me a deep, dark, disturbed character for our main love dude, I want to know why he is the way that he is. And I feel like this book is starting to deliver that while it feels natural and true to his character. Like, as he's slowly starting to open up to Nevada and we're learning more because she's learning more, I like it. We're standing at a point that I don't know where this is gonna go or what my rating is gonna be. I feel like it could be anywhere between like a 3 and a 5 star, depending on how these next 150 pages go. Okay, listen. I think overall the combo of having like a husband and wife duo writing a romance works out pretty well, because I think that it does a really good job at being pretty realistic with generally like female characters and generally male characters talk and act. It's believable. It makes the characters believable. But I wouldn't say they shine in the realm of writing random villainous characters. I'm gonna read you a quote. It's in the middle of the book. It gives no context, okay? I don't think it is a spoiler in the least, but I couldn't get over this. This was like just a random little villain character that we encountered as performed by Lexa Van Damme. You're all welcome. I'll be waiting for my call from the academy. His hand barely missed me as he flailed around. I took a step back. Don't you fucking move. Shoot her if she moves. The man on the left clicked the safety of his Glock. I tell you what, if I was in a good mood, I'd fuck you up and send you back without your bitch. Sorry. But I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a bad mood, punk. I'm gonna shoot your bitch right here, and then I'm gonna put you in a hole. You worth money, punk? Because you look like you're worth money. You're a businessman, right? Talk money, punk. Scene. Entertaining, if nothing else. And this is not supposed to be a caricature. Caricature? Not a character. I'm making fun of these people for not knowing how to write, but I don't know how to speak, evidently. This is not supposed to be a caricature of a villain. This is supposed to be like a big bad dude who apparently really likes to say the word punk. Okay, listen, I was a little worried that this one was losing me there for a second, but I am so on board. I took a shower, I was down for the night, I thought I was going to sleep, but now I just want to stay up and finish this book. So, that's how you know. Jory, would you like to be in our update? It was just so much fun. It was such a good combination of not only the relationship they had with like their romance and their little thing, which really I wouldn't even say is like, it's not heavy on the romance, it's heavy on the like pining, bantering side of things, but also the relationships that she had with her family and her growth as a character over the novel. She just had so much depth. Also, there's like tons of representation in this book. And again, I will go down swinging that neither one of the characters on that cover look like the characters that are described in the book. And I'm not very good at picturing people like inside of my head unless I can associate them with like an actor or an actress that I've seen a lot in real life. It still is like I don't really picture specifics, but just based off of the descriptions, no. There were like themes of anti-colonialism, governmental oppression of people, especially minority groups and those disadvantaged by society. Absolutely unexpected, but I'm so living for it. I feel like I need to go buy this whole series. I will say the last, hello, okay. She says, whoa, no Amazon purchases after midnight when your medication has worn off and you tend to impulse shop, Mom. Wait until the morning. I will say the last third of this book is the strong point. The whole book was like good, but it was kind of losing me there a little bit in the middle. I just didn't want to like pick it back up. It's been like a whole week of me reading this book. And for the fact that it's a mass market paperback, it's not very long. And it wasn't that I wasn't interested, it was just like, it was slowing down there for a little bit. But it really picked back up. I planned on only reading, like finishing out the chapter because I had stopped mid-chapter. And then I ended up finishing out the whole book. And now we are going to bed. Isn't that right, Dora? Are you ready for bedtime? She says, bitch, it has been bedtime for me for 3 hours while you've been out here reading this book. Okay, listen, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to read next. Then I was scrolling on TikTok and this video came up and I was like, the only luck I have ever had with like contemporary romance is sapphic romance. So why would I not read a sapphic fantasy romance? So obviously I'm gonna go pick up that book right now and get out of the house, which I have not done in the last day and a half. So we're gonna go. It appears we'll be doing our update with my child in my arms. I plan to update you a little bit more on my journey to Barnes & Noble, but I did not realize that it was snowing, so it took me a little bit longer to get there because despite the fact that I live somewhere where it does snow every single year, somehow it's like everyone doesn't expect it and has no idea how to drive in the snow. So it's not like it was snowing and like sticking. It's not like the roads were super unsafe. I didn't even notice it was snow. I thought it was rain for the longest time. People still drove as if they were driving through a tundra. It's fine. We did get Malice. It was looking bleak there for a hot second. I was going around looking for alternative options because online it said this was in stock. And I feel like I see this cover everywhere, like all of the time. Like instantly when I saw this on TikTok, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard tons of people talk about this. And I know that I've seen it a lot in stores. But for some reason this time, me and the person that I asked for help trying to find it could not find it. They finally did. So I went into this knowing nothing other than the fact that it is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but where the love interest is the villain. What is the villain's like name in, like I know Aurora is the princess, but what is the queen's name in Sleeping Beauty? Queen Leah. Maleficent, Maleficent. Maleficent, yes, 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 yes. So it took me longer than I would like to admit to realize that we were not in Aurora's perspective. We are in the evil queen's perspective, or in this case her name is Alice and she's not an evil queen, she is a dark grace. So in this world there are graces. This is really throwing me off because I just read Graceling and they have graces too, but these graces were graced by the Fae during a Fae war to give some humans like some special abilities, and this magic is obtained through their blood, but they have to kind of make these like potions and elixirs, and there's like one thing they kind of specialize in, whether it's like beauty or something else, but it's usually seen as like a positive thing, and they're used a lot by the government there, basically. Like the government profits off of them, so they have to use their powers in order to basically make themselves and the government profit. But then we got our main girl, Alice, and she is a dark grace, and her grace is like seen as a negative thing. Like so far we saw her making an elixir for a girl who wanted to make someone have warts or be ugly, or she'll like use her blood to turn people's lips black, and therefore a lot of people are really uneasy around her. They're scared of her, they treat her like an outcast, but they haven't outcast her because, come to find out, people like to be able to fuck with other people, so they'll pay like 3 times more for her dark elixir than they will for like a positive beauty elixir or whatever. So the government's like, fine, I guess you can live because you make us profit. This was giving me very much like Cinderella vibes at first, and I will say, I don't know the plot of Sleeping Beauty all that well. I was probably like 5 the last time I watched Sleeping Beauty, and I don't think I've read like another retelling about it, so I don't know if like the beginnings of Sleeping Beauty are kind of the same, but this was giving me Cinderella vibes in the fact that like she lives with these other girls who don't like her, who see her as the outcast, who are all kind of bitchy, and she's like an orphan, but she doesn't live with a stepmom. She lives with this woman who seems to like run this school for graces. I think they're called houses. So pretty much I've read the first like 50 pages, and we've just done a lot of like world building so far. It is very fairy tale inspired. When I say it was reminding me of Cinderella, I was like, this is the plot of Cinderella, but it could just be that this is the plot of a lot of like fairy tale type stories like this. But as we're kind of getting the backstory of this world and the magic system and how the humans kind of have had a history interacting with the Fae, we also start to learn that Alice doesn't really know a lot of her history because she was just dropped in a random alleyway as a baby and then dropped off at the council's doorstep by some dude. But the other graces in her house get an invitation to none other than a ball, but not Prince Charming's ball. It is Aurora's 21st or 20th birthday ball. 20th birthday ball. The age thing is important. And she's never gotten to go before, but the mother of this house, the teacher or whatever, she's like, oh, I guess there's no reason that you couldn't go. Oh yes, and we have a curse that can only be broken by true love's kiss. But the curse isn't like a sleeping curse. The curse is that Aurora's like whole lineage, if they don't find true love's kiss by the time that they're 21, they bye. At least for the women. I think only women can be graces, and this curse only applies, no, they only have women. And they gotta find their main true love before they turn 21, or they're gonna die, like Aurora's 2 older sisters have in the past. But now Aurora is 20, so time is a ticking. She only got 1 more year. This is marketed on TikTok a lot as the villain gets the girl. And I think that's why I was a little bit confused when whose head we were in until they mentioned Aurora's name and it was not our main girl. Because our main girl, yes, is seen by society as the villain, as someone to stay away from, but like it's very obvious we're in her head, and like the girl has been through a lot of shit and is still very kind and just wants to, you know, be accepted and live her life without being judged by everyone. I'm liking it so far. It's a very different vibe than anything I've ever really read. I don't think I've ever read like a fairy tale retelling like this where it very much is the vibe of a fairy tale, and it's not even really that dark. I would say the fact that she's treated like shit by people sucks, but there's not been this like very super ominous vibe any more so than you would get in like an adult retelling of a fairy tale, right? We're just getting to the point where Alice and Aurora are like about to, I'm guessing they're about to meet. Alice is seeing Aurora for the first time, so hopefully we can start getting into seeing how they interact. Oh, okay. Excuse me, sir. We're just gonna have to accept the sketchy blind situation until I get new ones in. Also, I have not washed my hair. We're not talking about it. I got a new coconut almond tea. And I can't forget I have groceries getting delivered later tonight. Okay, so I am about 200 pages into Malice, which is like the halfway point. And listen, I don't want to sound like I'm just shitting on this book. Let me take this out so I can hear myself. But I just don't know if it's my thing. And I am at the point that I don't know whether I want to keep going or not. So in this world, there's tons of lore and history and mythology and connections to why the magic system is the way that it is. And one of the main pieces of history that our main girl, Alice, likes to talk about and to follow is Queen Lithiana, I think is. And I think that the author wanted to write Queen Lithiana, lithium batteries story, but also wanted to do a retelling and then realized that she couldn't combine both of those things for some reason. I don't know, because she spends so much time telling us about the magic system and the history of this world. So therefore the entire book feels like telling rather than showing. I almost wish that this was like dual timeline where we got a point of view of Alice, our main girl, and then a point of view of like the queen back in the day that all of this magic was like just kind of becoming, because then we could see what she's talking about rather than Alice just inside of our mind telling us. And there's really not like a vehicle to give us that information that feels natural, and there's really no plot happening either, which normally I'm fine with that. I am a character and vibes galley. Nothing has to happen and I will love it. The Atlas 6, people's biggest complaint about that book is that nothing happens, and I loved it. Loved every minute of it, despite the fact that 90% of it was no plot. But that was because it was very character based. There wasn't a lot of world building in that book. I know I said that I picked up this book because I wanted like a high fantasy or I wanted more world building, but I didn't want it in this sense. I want to be shown the world and I want to feel like I'm part of it, not that I'm being lectured on it. In the moments that Alice is interacting with other people, I really like. Like, she has a girl who she lives with named Rose who is so fucking annoying, and I just want to punch her in the face, but I love that. Like, at least I'm feeling something for a character and I want more of their banter and their interactions, and I want more with her and Aurora, or her and anyone. Even if she had like a quirky best friend, I just need something, because she spends so much time alone, so much time in her head telling us about the history of the magic system and who these different groups of people are and why they don't like each other and why her magic is different than everyone else's. Probably should have just read the ebook for this rather than going out and purchasing it. But I thought sapphic fantasy romance. I would want to be able to like tab and highlight it. I just finished Malice. I did in fact actually finish it. I mainly listened to it on audiobook for the rest of the time. The thing is, I just don't think that fairy tale retellings are for me. The last half, part 2, the pacing, so much better. So if you're already liking this book, like if you pick it up and you're liking it within the first like 50 pages, I genuinely think you're gonna love it. I wasn't vibing with it too much from the very start, and I should have just put it down. But there are so many books that I'm not vibing with from the very start, especially if they're part of a series, which this I believe is just a duology, that it takes me a little bit to get into it. I wanted it to be darker throughout more of the book. I didn't really care that much about Alice and Aurora's relationship. I liked Alice, but not really. Like, not enough to really root for her or care a lot. So that by the time all of like the twists and the reveals and the action was coming around, it wasn't hitting, because I just was like, okay. Because I didn't really care about any of the characters. And for me, I have to have strong feelings about the characters, whether it's one way or the other. Honestly, my favorite character in this entire book was Rose because she made me want to punch her in the face the whole time. I actually liked all of her moments, and I don't think that was supposed to be our takeaway from this book. Oh my god, I can't stand villainous monologues. We got a lot of that at the end of this book. So I think I'm gonna land on like 2.5 stars. And I would still really recommend this, especially if the premise of this sounds like your vibe. A fairy tale retelling. You like when things get a little bit dark, but not a super dark retelling. Just like a little twist. Burn for me was the highlight of this vlog, and trust me, I didn't see that one coming. A Touch of Darkness. Okay, yeah, so we had a 4-star, a 2-star, and a 2.5 star. Some things I have learned. I do like enemies to lovers when it's in a fantasy setting, not when it's in a contemporary romance setting. I'm okay with a slow burn as long as I have lots of actual on-page time with the two main love interests if you are going to make romance a heavy part of the book. If it's just a fantasy with like a dabble of romance, I'm fine with that. If it's not a big part, then it doesn't need to be a big part of the book. Because what I thought was my issue with a lot of contemporary romance, which might still be the case with contemporary romance, is that I feel like 95% of the book they spend not together, especially if it's enemies to lovers. We don't get to see them in love and like actively admitting to being in love and getting to be in their relationship for long enough for me. I'm like, this isn't a romance. Like, I get that it is, but it doesn't feel enough for me. If I had to rank them, Burn for me, Malice, A Touch of Darkness. Before going into this, I would have thought A Touch of Darkness, Malice, Burn for me. Alona Andrews, you got me. I'm already even excited to read some of their other series because I've heard the Magic Bites series is really good, so I might end up starting that too. If you made it all the way to the end of this vlog, leave a little fire emoji. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.